The marine environment is not disconnected from the land. It's obvious that water flows downhill, and it's obvious we need a much more te ao Māori perspective on how to manage our systems. A Kiti Kitai approach where we think about the mountains to the sea as one connected and holistic ecosystem.
What that means is we need every management action and every policy that supports that management action to be focused on making the place better. That is completely doable and completely possible. It just requires a small mind shift. That's all it takes. It also really brings to the fore the need for a much greater diversity of knowledge and ways of thinking about problem solving than historically has been used to manage our oceans.
Decisions about what happens in our marine estate in New Zealand, particularly with fisheries, are highly centralised. So a lot of decisions are made at a ministerial level with science advice and industry input. And Māori have not always been at the table at some of those decisions. We do have organisations like Tauihu Media and others that can feed in to these processes, but we need to have a lot more of that knowledge, experience and local ways of knowing feeding in.
There's been a nonsense within the government for quite some time. If you look at what's happening in climate change, take Cyclone Gabriel. I think the result of Cyclone Gabriel is that we're now bearing the cost of decades of building permits on floodplains.
It's an important piece of that puzzle. In terms of the coastal sediment, we did that. The Hawke's Bay Marine and Coast Group was formed originally in 2016, and it's been invaluable. Post-cyclone, we met frequently. We all shared about what we were interested in, what we could do, what we couldn't do, who we could ask for help, that kind of thing. And it was actually amazing to have this ready-made group to share information, find out what's needed in the coast, and then try to feed that information up to decision makers.
Biggest thing I think is hearing other people, because we see the world as we are, not necessarily as it is, right? So when you get the opportunity to hear what's happening for others, it just widens your scope of understanding as to what has to be grappled in order to get the outcomes that we're all after.
And where you could say, right, well, we'll just close that particular area off, people would begin to respect that.
I'm passionate about the sacrifice and the time that my forefathers spent preserving the kaimon all along the coast.
It's been incredibly valuable to see how others are operating, be it the commercial sector, be it regional councils, be it other operators. It's a great forum to be able to objectively and honestly talk about challenges and benefits and the good and the bad about the marine space.
It's that ability to bring in the science, that mātauranga, that Indigenous knowledge, and combine those two together with also the legal knowledge and the knowledge of how you govern these areas. So I think that's where we need to head in future. New Zealand has some of the leading models of how to do some of this stuff. There was a marine management plan developed in Kaikōura, in part led by the Kaikōura runanga. This is one of the best examples in the world of how you formulate a marine management plan, and that brought together all the different stakeholders, all those with an interest in the marine area within that Kaikōura district.
We called a meeting of the community and we borrowed a model from the Guardians of Fiordland, and we call it the egg model. So in the yolk of the egg were all of the locals, and they are the only ones that had a vote in the system. And the white of the egg were the government agencies, the local council. Mind you, we allowed the council to have sort of half a foot into the yolk. because it is local. ECAN, they were all in the outside and they could only be advisory. We did a characterisation report on our coastline, what's actually on our coastline. That took a few years to do that properly, and also learning about each other and learning to trust each other in commercial, customary and recreational. So originally, my lot wanted 2 mātaitai. One was about a 6 kilometre stretch of coast north of Kaikōura, and the other was, where I come from, about a 14k stretch. Well, out of those 2 areas come about 20 tonne of commercial power. And to me, my view has always been the mātaitai are to service the marae, to manaki our visitors. It's not a place to go and raid and take continuously. When they wanted the 6Ks up the coast, of course the commercials hit the roof because it takes out 6 tonne of their quota. So I actually talked to the cooks of both maraes. Mangomanu, you're a small whānau marae that has a meeting once a month, and maybe once a year, twice a year, have someone staying on your marae. Be honest. How much power would you put through your wharekai in a year? The response was, about 100 Ks. What do you need 6 Ks of coastline for then? That one reef right below your marae is one of the most prolific power reefs on the Kaikōura coastline. Why don't we have it on there? So we did. And the same with my lot, why would we want a 14k stretch of coast? Takahanga, maximum, you'd use half a tonne to a tonne. So we reduced significantly the area of the mātaitai. And that was a gift and a gain. What we wanted at the start was silly, if I do say so myself, but we had to negotiate, bring it back down, keep everyone happy. So we legislated the Te Korawai processes, and out of that came the guardians, who are an advisory direct to the minister. He cannot refuse to take our advice.
That then prompted regulatory change in government. So it came from the bottom up, grassroots-led change, and with a strong Indigenous framing and process underpinning it. So I think, from my perspective, that's probably one of the best examples in the world of how this can be done, and there's no reason why this can't be replicated.
It's a bit scary at the moment. The government's now going to reopen the taranaki to be mined, which really fascinates me. We ban net fishing because of the damage it does to the Maui's dolphin, but bottom mining won't. I find that very difficult to come to terms with.
There's a lot of room here for a transition into a different way of doing things, but it's based on a different value set and different concepts and ideas of the way in which resources are thought about and managed, and the way in which we relate to and live with our marine areas.
You use this sea as a larder. It's a place to get a meal. It is not a place to fill your freezer. And if everyone uses it as a larder, there'll be ample for everybody to eat. But when we just come in and blitz it, all you're doing is hastening the demise.
Some of the organisations that we've studied and researched as part of our research program are looking at that very question. What is the role of tikanga in the business of fishing? And so if you're a fisher, a commercial fisher who's on the high seas, what is the role of tikanga in that situation?
We have some really interesting legal developments going on in Aotearoa New Zealand at the moment. Our courts are driving some pretty groundbreaking court decisions that are recognising tikanga Māori as its own source of law in Aotearoa New Zealand. We also have a lot of work that's been done by government agencies like the New Zealand Law Reform Commission to understand how Aotearoa New Zealand can become what we call bijural, so completely recognising that there are plural legal systems operating and getting them to work together.